Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. I trust you are having a wonderful day. Today we are going to dive into a very important issue which is surrounding the world right now. We are seeing amazing, disturbing social upheavals in a man-woman relationship, in politics, and in our social life. We have witnessed in the last couple of months and years that every single Hindu festivity in India is being challenged. The very existence of gods and goddesses are being questioned. Whether it's Diwali, the firecrackers create pollution, the noise pollution, whatever else is there. And Hindus are trying to defend that scenario. But the left-wing attack is creating a pressure of its own kind. We have now witnessed in the United States and in India a very serious impact of the Me Too movement. Me Too movement got co-opted by India after its explosive entry in the US social and political life some months ago. And it is imbibed now in India, where every politician, every woman is coming out to discuss this issue. Now, this is not to be taken lightly. Those women who have indeed suffered the agony of this kind of a torture or abuse, their stories need to be heard, and it cannot be washed away just because it happened 20 years ago and there is no evidence. At the same time, the challenge it poses to the democratic societies is very simple. In democracy, the rule of law prevails. Unless you are proven guilty, unless there is evidence, you can't just be castigated as a rapist, murderer, or a cheat. And that's a very important part. As one of the gurus in India has said, that if you want to make things change, you have to experience the change and you have to feel it from within. And in my opinion, it is up to men and women of India and the world over to view this challenge from a perspective that it is personal as well as is social. Personal and social are interconnected, and it relates to the fact that when men indulge in such abusive behavior of taking a woman for granted, they must bear in mind that that young lady could be somebody's daughter, somebody's wife, somebody's mother perhaps, or somebody's sister. Conversely, when a woman chooses to, supposedly, attack a man, that man could be somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's husband, and somebody's father perhaps. So this issue is throwing upon a challenge to the humankind in terms of entire ramifications of relationships between men and women. How do we interact with each other? How will future display what kind of things that are going to happen? What India or Indic philosophy or Hindu thoughts and our sanskar teaches us to address this issue? In the Christian world and Islamic world, they have very defined ways of doing things. In the Hindu way of life, it is life itself. So do we have any offering, any solution to offer to the world around us? We have today in our studio two very bright young men who have done very well in their own lives, personally and professionally. One of them is Dr. Vikram Singh Tomar. Vikram has been in the government, and he has been in education for a very long time. He teaches and changes the impact on police force and various agencies in India, and we will talk with him about his experience. And then we have Rajesh Ravindranath. Rajesh is here in US. He lives in New Jersey. He works for a large company. He's a technology expert and has a deep interest in spiritual awareness. So we begin this conversation with Vikram and would like to know from him that in his perception of things, his study of Bhagavad Gita and Hindu scriptures, where does he find a solution? Where does he find the hope? And where does he find the potential of addressing this huge challenge in an Indic way? Vikram?
Thank you, Mr. Jha, and to bring up such an important issue and important concern. So, it is said that Hinam Dushyanti iti Hinduh. So, one who fights against evil, one who fights against what is wrong, it is how Hindu is defined as. So, in Indic system, we have always conceived man and woman relationship with the concept of Shiv and Shakti. Shiv is considered as an eternal source of energy, and Shakti is considered as its manifestation. So even Shiv Shakti concept is also like this. When we say Shakti, it is, you can compare Shakti as a water which is in the dam. It's a potential energy. When it falls, we call it kinetic energy. When it moves the turbine, you call the same as mechanical. When you put magnets around, you call it electromagnetic energy and electricity. So energy takes various forms. Similarly, Navratri is going on. This is what you call as Navdurga, when Shakti takes various forms. So what I want to bring home is that male and female are considered as the two sides of the same coin. One is manifestation, another is unmanifested. So we have Indian system, Indian culture has always appreciated women and men together, and that's why we see all prime goddesses, may it be goddess of knowledge, may it be goddess of prosperity, or may it be the goddess of nature, respectively Saraswati, Lakshmi and Parvati are connected with femininity, and that's why woman in Indian culture is called Nari. The literal meaning of Nari is Na plus Ari. Ari means enemy, one who is enemy to none, because she conceives, and that's why she is called Nari. And Nari is also perceived as the center, an important axis of the existence of the families in India, and that's why when she gets married, she is called Shrimati. Mati stands for intelligence. Shri means like Goddess Lakshmi. One who has got stable intelligence is called Shrimati. So once she gets married, so much responsibility is on her shoulders. So Indic philosophy expects both to behave more responsibly, understand the importance of each other in respective lives together. So maybe when we appreciate each other more, we appreciate each other's differences, gender differences we appreciate each other's emotions, we become more responsible and sensible towards each other.
Brilliant. The point which I am going to talk with Rajesh now is that, given an excellent explanation of the thought and concept in this regard, is that how does religion play a role in it? So this is a wonderful knowledge. We all know that instinctively, intuitively. We know what we need to do. When we do something wrong, we know we are doing something wrong. How does the world, which is right now in the held hostage by various political manipulations, religious manipulations. So think about it like this: when you maim and hurt people in the name of religion, and despite India having so many goddesses there, why does that man in India not remember the virtues of the Nar and Nari relationship? What does the religion have to do, and how this particular aspect must be addressed? Because I strongly feel that if you hurt somebody in the name of religion, that's when you recognize you are brainwashed.
Absolutely, because religion, especially in our context, it's a change within. Typically what happens is the religions have reduced to external dogmas and practices. As far as the Vedic wisdom is concerned, or the Hindu wisdom is concerned, it's a clear way of life with a view. Because if I say that the religion is a way of life, pickpocketing is also a way of life. So the way of life would be defined with a view of self-improvement. So any process, any rituals, anything I do should be based on that elevation of the individual. And the basic concept of the Hindu way of life is bring that change within. How do I change myself so that the entire society will be ultimately changed? Because society is nothing but a collection of the individual. So the focus of the religion is not to go and change other people, convert other people. It is to convert myself. How do I change myself to a better person? How do I relate with myself better? How do I relate with other people better? So in our scriptures, we were asked to do Panchamaha-yajnas. We are asked to relate with the bhutas, the nature. We are not supposed to disturb the nature. We are asked to do the Manushya-yajna. We have to be love and compassionate to all the human being. We are asked to do the Pitru-yajna. We have to have a strong family, stable family. And we were asked to do the Deva-yajna. How do we have to surrender to the higher ideal? Because when I am connected with the higher, these lower tendencies will not naturally manifest. And finally, I am asked to do the Brahma Yajna. I am asked to study and live my scripture. Not just reading the scripture will not make anybody change, but living the scripture. How do I make that happen? This is the biggest challenge and in front of us.
So the point here, you use the word convert, and that's a true religious challenge in the world today. And that's here, will be an element of politics here in it, and the way religion is operating. Now we know that more than 150 countries are home to Christianity. Likewise, more than 60 countries are home to Islam. India is the only country which is home to Hindus, but we are declared ourselves as a secular part of it. So when the Christian proselytization happens in India, they convert people to their own faith, or they join another faith. There thus becomes a challenge from my perspective is, God did not create religion. God created the universe, and in it, all of us, including ants, rats, rodents, snakes, and what have you. Everything performs its role in nature. Nothing is wasted. Perhaps we humans are the only ones who contribute virtually zero to nature. We destroy nature, and then we talk about climate change. There is a challenge here of conversion. If God created the universe, whether you are in Africa, you are white in the West, you are in a particular shape and size in the East, and then we are the people like naturally tanned. The question is, if God created the universe as is, man created religion, where does conversion fit in here? Why do people do this conversion game? It's a political element. We have drifted away from the main topic, but that plays a role. Because when you say Jesus is the only way and Allah is supreme, then did God mean that everybody else is nonsensical? And that's what I would like to hear from you about it. What is India doing in the name of freedom of religion and conversation of that kind? Why can't we do something like, hey, conversion is against God's original wish, and that's an actual sin against God's intent?
So, very relevant question you asked. I believe, look, conversion has a seed of comparison in it. We compare when we feel insecure. India has been, since last 5,000 years, has been telling to the world the principle of Advaita. There are not two. We all are one. What is called at times Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam also. When there are only one, we all are the manifestations of the same. As Vivekananda said that all roads leads to thee. So, and that's why in India, Vidya, education, is defined as Sa Vidya Ya Vimuktaye. Education is not something which feeds you with knowledge. It is something which liberates you, which takes all fears away from you. Any person who is afraid will create fear in other people. Any person who is afraid will think of conversion. Otherwise, you yourself should walk in a way that people should start following your way. So, Indic system has always, cooperating with all other religions, we are open for all different thoughts, because all thoughts leads to thee. And that's why we say two things. One is called Jaya, another is called Vijay. Vijay is when I win others' heart. That is Vijay. Not suppressing them, not converting them, winning their hearts. That is Vijay. But before that, most important is Jay, when I win over myself. When I win over my own problems, my own negativities, my own anger, my own lust, my own phobias. When I win over myself, it becomes Vijay, and when I win over myself, when I start walking my talk, people also start following it, and not towards a particular path, towards thee. And that's why in India, when we meet somebody for the first time, we say namaste. Namaste is namah plus te. Namah means I bow down. For te, for you, I leave my ego, I shed away everything, and as a human. And how do we do that? Our thumb is always indicating towards our heart, fingers towards head, and our hands. In my heart, in my head, in my actions, with my thoughts, actions and speech, I am being one. And why do I bow down? Because you may be Mr. Jha, I am Dr. Tomar, but you may be a Christian, I am a Hindu, but as a human being, you are also a human and I am also a human. I deliberately reject the dissimilarity between you and me, and I deliberately focus to whatever is similar between you and me. So conversion, we don't appreciate, we don't go for it, and we preach, believe in Advait.
This is brilliant. The point of the matter is you talk about education. Now that's very, very important, because we in India value education a lot, acquiring knowledge, acquiring beyond information, acquiring authentic knowledge. But at the same time, applying the 80-20 rule, not everybody will be able to attain that scenario, right? Not everybody attains moksha. Not everybody attains godhood or life enhancement the way it is. And thus, there comes a very interesting phrase, is called that majority of us, just because we have read something, we believe we know it. And that's what I call the disease of educated incapacity. You have 1 minute to tell me before we take a break and switch over to other topic, that in the Indian context, although we know that, women are the way they are, why does the abuse happen? Is it a function of an individual diseased mind, or does the societal conditions encourage that? We will get back to this question soon after this short break. Welcome back. We had a very fruitful discussion earlier on, and I was asking Rajesh to comment upon the fact that why do we suffer so much from educated incapacity? Why, despite all the wisdom and knowledge, we end up doing the wrong things? Is it because the world is imperfect? Is it because when the rubber hits the road, then we realize that these are matters that are only a function of Puranas and Gitas and Bible and Quran Sharif? It is written in the text, but real life is different. We often hear that. Real life is different. Rajesh.
Absolutely, because this issue is not a new issue. Even this issue was there in Mahabharata. Duryodhana used to tell, I know what is dharma, but I am not able to follow it. I know what is adharma, but I cannot stop doing it. So there are two things. One is the knowledge. We know that the knowledge exists in our scriptures. Second thing is people are informed also. But having the information is one thing, but living that information, internalizing and practicing, sometimes they are helpless. Even though they know when the situational pressure comes, they cannot resist. Our scriptures talk about this as vasana, or the likes and dislike. So this is the core issue that our Bhagavad Gita and our Vedanta addresses, because your mind, the current state of your mind determines who you are. You are pre-programmed with so many activities. So sometimes when you face a situation, what happens is certain programs will execute and you are helpless in the hands of your karmas or the programs or whatever you call that. So this is where the true religious practice has to happen. That true religious practice has to lead us an internal transformation, which we call as yoga in our scripture.
Talking about that fact, one more important thing is that ever since, if you remember, politicians, they live in their own world of reality. And they end up becoming the de facto leaders of the communities. For example, in America, there are 350 million people, 400 odd people in Congress and 100 senators. In India, another large economy, a large demographic country, 1.3 billion people, but there are 540 odd members of parliament. People look upon political leadership, but they live in their own world. They always talk in terms of what should happen. They always talk about we will transform and we will change, but it doesn't always happen. We notice that people strive for incremental changes. Incremental change and transformative change, they're two different things. And that's what is important for people to realize, that as science and technology has created more knowledge and awareness around us, the old dogmas of religion are falling. The old theories are no longer valid. And that's what we are witnessing today, whether it is the murder of Khashoggi, death of Khashoggi in Saudi embassy in Turkey, or many other things that one can talk about. Technology has allowed evidences to be built around. And that's what is the challenge the world faces. What was true 10 years ago, when you paid $3 for a phone call, now you can have a video for free. And there is another classic example which is favorite of mine. Good old days, women were held accountable, responsible, blamed or given credit for a male child to be born. And that's why mothers used to say, my son, mera bacha. Nobody used to say, meri beti. Nobody used to say, my daughter. The question is, now we know, because of scientific evidence, that it's man who is responsible for the birth or gender determination of a child. That question died out completely. So talking about the transformation and change and your experience of teaching and training, the police force in India and the Central Reserve Police Force and Coast Guard, how did you experience that a system which is so much dependent on orders, command, rule of law, how did you effect a change and did you succeed in transforming them?
Before I venture into the question, one very relevant thing, as you used the word transformation. So transformation, I believe it is a relatively permanent change in the behavior, or rather it's the permanent change in the behavior. When our behavior changes, then only we can say a transformation has taken place. Human beings are the most intelligent species on this planet, and human beings are again the most unhappy species on the planet. That clearly indicates that we have parked our intelligence somewhere else. So we are not utilizing the instrument that is given to us. As you were talking about some senior political leaders also, I have met many leaders in my life who, in spite of being at the leadership position throughout their life, they could not become leaders actually. As they say that generally maturity comes with age, but at times age alone also comes. So what is the indication whether it is forces or a common person that you need transformation in life? The only dashboard of life is happiness. If we are not happy, there are four kinds of people. One are successfully unhappy, some are happily unsuccessful, some are neither happy nor successful, only few are happy and successful at the same time. So how to bring everybody to this point where people are happy and successful? So when I traveled across the country, I have understood one thing, that people who are ready to bring the change in themselves, only they are happy. I have seen very senior people being upset and unhappy in big air conditioned cabins also. I have seen laborers being very happy in life. So I have understood one thing, happiness is a choice and misery is optional. You opt for unhappiness. So when a person wants to be, and he understands life in the right spirit, then he opts for happiness. There is no reason for happiness, there is no reason for unhappiness in life. Only people who are ready for the transformation, they transform, and people who are not ready, they never transform. And that's why we say Dvija. Dvija means twice born. In Hindu culture, we say Dvij, means there are two kinds of womb. One is womb of mother where a person gets birth. Another is the womb of experience and knowledge. When you see things in right perspective, there is a chance you can born again as a personality. So whether it is forces, but yes, in forces, pressure is more of discipline. So it really becomes more critical for them to be happy, and that's why it is more challenging also. But I have seen many magnificent officers in forces, who chose to be happy. So my take in that will be, in this world, the person who is happy, he has chosen to be happy. Happiness is a choice and misery is optional.
Choice is something, I mean, that's a favorite word of mine. You have a choice always. For example, I had a choice to do this or not to do this. These gentlemen had a choice to come or not to come, but they exercised their choice to come here. I exercise the choice of doing this. That's why we are having this conversation. And I'm a believer in the word action. This is the deepest thing that I learned from Bhagavad Gita, is that if for transformation and change, you have to take action. We Indians, and I think generally, I mean, let me not say Indians alone, but globally, and this is personal experience, people indulge in 5 V's, and that's what I use the Hindi part of the V, is Vichar, Vimarsh, Vishleshan, Vimochan and Vikhyan. Karna hum bhool gaye. That's very, very important. So we, at least in the Indian context, I know, we debate, we argue, विश्लेषण विमोचन विख्यान करते रहते हैं, भूल गए गीता का वो शब्द, एक्शन में ही सब कुछ है. Rajesh, your comment on that?
Certainly, because the key emphasis in Gita is Karma Yoga. Because the 3rd chapter of the Gita opens with that question by Arjuna. Because in case, if you think that knowledge is superior than everything else, why are you asking me to do this terrible action? So Krishna answers, see, as an individual, you have to act. Without act, your spiritual progress is impossible. Even the journey, means taking care of the life, is impossible. So the right way of action, that's emphasized in Gita as Karma Yoga. Krishna gives a brilliant sutra, 2nd chapter, verse 47. The choice or the control you have is on action. I can choose to act, not to act. I can do all the due diligence and I can pick up an action. And the result is not entirely on my hand. I have control over the action, but the result is not in my hand. So choose to act wisely. Don't get attached to inaction. This is the key mantra of the Bhagavad Gita. But unfortunately, we forget that and we just renounce the action. This is a paradox, a contradiction of what is given to us and what we practice. This is why the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita has to go to people, because typically people think Bhagavad Gita as a means of worship, but people forget the fact that it's a manual of life. When I follow those rules of the manual, I can make that change within myself. And when should I start that? I should start at the young age, because typically people think that the study of the scripture is either for retired or for the retarded people. But we need to do that at a very young age. And
at the very young age, and that's where the education starts. We go to school at the age of 5 to learn the alphabets, the numbers, and importantly enough, we forget. Remember one thing, the child is a very brilliant composition of life. Children, the younger age, they are the best linguists in the world. They pick up any language just like that. When you grow up more and more, we become regimented and structured. It becomes difficult for us to learn something. And thus, unlearning is key to success in life. What I know, I may be wrong. If we have the ability to articulate and contemplate that not everything I know could be correct, and when you deal with experience, which Doctor said earlier on, that if you become the second birth comes from knowledge, experience and learning, that's key. Learning is a very important part in life. We do some wonderful work on the enemies of learning, what makes somebody learn. And there is a very interesting phrase that we use for that. When you come across a phrase where you say, oh no moment, oh no moment, oh I did not know this. Confessing that I don't know everything is your biggest first step towards learning something new. We will come back to some other very important topics as to we understood the subject matter. So what can we do and what are we doing in our individual and collective capacity to effect a change? We will discuss that, what is possible and what is missing. Stay tuned soon after these short messages. Welcome back. In this segment, we will talk about leading it from transformation and change, that despite so much of wisdom and knowledge in our scriptures, and we know it, how many of us have really read it, understood it, imbibed it? The percentage may be very, very small, in my opinion, in my guess. I had devised, when I read Bhagavad Gita, I picked on one item that brought about a transformational shift in me. I'm going to embarrass my guests today by asking them, what was it in the Hindu scriptures or Bhagavad Gita, or pick your scripture, it can be Ramcharitmanas, for all that I know. Whichever something that really brought about that transformative shift in you, so that it took you away from your mundane life and took you on the path that you have chosen to be on. What would that be for you, Doctor?
So you have asked me, like, whom do you like more between your mother and father? Indian scriptures are just like my parents to me, and it's really the most difficult question. I must say that Gita will always inspire the man of action and Upanishads the man of thoughts. So there were many, but like when Gita says that we are too temporary to have permanent problems in life. And once we understand the higher motives of life, automatically lower motives of life started getting shed away. In Buddhism, one thing that always motivated me was Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Whenever you want to feel inspired in life, first thing you should always have, you should have a Buddham in life, the person with whom you can share what you feel like, you feel light. Second is Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. Always read good books and scriptures. They are the manuals of mankind. Third is Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. Always be around the people who are very positive. Be away from the psychic vampires. And last words of the Buddha's life was Appadipo Bhav. Be your own light. Listen to your own consciousness. Person who listens to consciousness always remain motivated in life. So these words has really inspired me throughout my life.
And Rajesh, one thing which I have learnt about it is that just because we know something doesn't mean we try to give the hypothetical justification for that. But here is the question that comes to my mind, and I'm always bothered about it. We always complain. We know that India was ruled by invaders for thousands of years, whether it is the British East India Company or the Mughal and whatever. What happened to our knowledge and wisdom that we did not contest that? The second part is that why don't we own accountability and responsibility for what has happened to Hindus? Or, frankly speaking, we are not Hindus. Hindus was a name given to us. We are Sanatan Dharmis. So the question here is, how did we let that happen to us? 1941 census, if you care to notice, to be saying the exact number, approximately 145,000 British were there in India, according to 1941 census, plus women and children. But they ruled millions of people and a vast piece of land, a prosperous economy, and impoverished it. So my question here is, and not a question actually, my thought is that why is it that we Hindus are seemingly perpetually disunited? Anything that you feel that can change, is it time for that to happen? And what must happen for creating a Hindu unity?
It's an absolute necessity of the hour. There are hundreds of factors that divide the Hindus, predominantly the misinterpretation of the scriptures. There is one verse in Bhagavad Gita which is always misinterpreted by the enemies of our culture. Chaturu Varnyam Maya Srishtam. I am the author of this fourfold caste system. So a Brahmin is a superior, a Shudra is inferior. But they forget the second line of that verse, which is Guna Karma Vibhagasha. And in the next verse he tells, everybody is equally dear to me. So the misinterpretation of the scriptures and also lack of understanding of the scriptures is the cause of this division. Everybody consolidate themselves in the form of caste, creed, language, etc. So we have to transcend all that, and we should unite as Vedic followers, because Vedic wisdom never differentiate one human being or the other.
I totally agree with you, because I have been asked this question many times, and in the United States, about our vicious caste system. And according to my understanding, caste system is an origin and a name given much later in our lives, historical lives. In reality, what existed was a Varna system as to what you did. Now, not everybody could be a warrior, not everybody could be a thinker, not everybody could do trade and commerce, not everybody could do. So in a modern parlance, think about it. In the modern parlance, government, and everybody in government is the modern Brahmin. Everybody in the armed forces or paramilitary forces, security forces are the modern Kshatriyas.
Correct.
Ambanis and everybody in trade, commerce and business are the modern Vaishyas. And guess what? Everybody who is offering services are the service providers. That's the Varna system. So even IT are the modern Shudras, if you were to call it that way, but they are service providers.
Correct.
This somewhere along the line got vitiated, and we created the caste system, and then the politics stepped in. How do we counter that at this point in time? And that's the challenge which I feel every Indian must address. Because if you have noticed in the recent past, our victory and medal winning in sports and cricket and other sporting events, you know, it was a matter of pride for me that India and China played the soccer match and we held them to a draw. India was a soccer champion of Asia at one time. What happened? Performance alone matters. Performance matters, regardless of what field you are in. And that is one way for Hindus to understand that there is no caste. Somewhere along the line, in my humble opinion, I would appeal, somebody should be daring enough to say, this caste-based job qualifications must go, or discrimination must go. It has to be to the best. Your cricket team is made up of Muslims, Yadavs, Kolhatkars and everybody else. Why there is no caste-based in cricket? That's what is important. And to that end, I would ask you, young gentlemen, is that where is the way forward? हमने आज विचार विमर्श विश्लेषण विज्ञान सब कर लिया. In terms of action, we are not going to make a difference to the world, but if we can sow a seed of what can be done, what have you done, and what you have done, Rajesh, to make a difference in the communities that we live around.
Thank you for the question. Bharat shabd jo hai, it is made up of two words, bha plus rat. Rat means involved. Bha means highest orders of meditation. A land which is involved in the highest orders of meditation is Bharat. And the biggest problem is, as you rightly said, not only 1% of Hindus have read scriptures. And whatever generally we talk in society, we read in Google, they are just rumors. And when people create opinion on the basis of rumors, and then things start getting perished. Like Kshatriya word you used. Kshatriya, Shat plus Tra. Shat means wounds. Tra means one who heals. One who heals the wound is Kshatriya, not one who gives the wounds. So when we understand Sanskrit and scriptures in right perspective, automatically we will understand the vastness of this culture. Another question you had is, what can we do? I agree, before we criticize, let's contribute. Never ask what culture has given to me. Always ask, have I enriched and have I protected and promoted my culture? Never ask what my nation has done for me. What I have done for the nation, ask that. So, understanding this concept, we understood that Bhagavad Gita is one of the scripture which is very simple to understand and very profound to live. Like Swami Chinmayanand used to say that it does not matter how many times you go through Gita in life, whether Gita has gone through your life even once. If once ever Gita will go through anybody's life, his life will completely change. He will be elevated to a higher level of himself with more determination in worldly and para-worldly affairs too. So we started some project called Project Self. We ourselves are the biggest project for us. So we started Project Self 4 years back. The purpose of Project Self is reading Hindu scriptures, Indian scriptures, ancient scriptures, and identifying whatever is best in those scriptures which can be connected back to the modern life and being. And this we started in New Jersey 4 years back, and with God's grace we are going very good, and there are many people who are connected with us in this project self, and their lives are transforming completely. One. Second, we started a project called Akshara Kids Academy, because at times we feel that it's too late. As I told you, maturity comes with age, but at times age comes alone also. Right. So we started something called Akshara Kids Academy in India, Bharat, Ujjain. And Akshara Kids Academy is an initiative of Project Self to teach underprivileged kids. It is a play school where we take those kids, give those kids also admission who are financially incapable, and we sponsor their education. So such initiative, if there is one option, either we take these initiatives. If being in the regular routines of life we are unable to take that kind of initiative, we can always support such initiatives, because together we can really make the difference. Alone nobody can. One is too small a number to make a big difference. So another initiative is Akshara Kids Academy. And one more initiative, probably he may be better able to discuss about, Project Gita. So will be the third initiative that we have, to project Gita in front of everybody so that people can connect, and Hindu ones will start following Gita together. It will be like Shankaracharya did. He created some shrines where all Hindus can be connected with each other. Similarly, Gita can be a shrine for humanity.
That's so amazing, and I congratulate you for that initiative. That's powerful, and I wish you all the best in this effort. And is this based in US or India? Or?
So we have Project Self is registered NGO in US, New Jersey, and a branch of Project Self, such initiation to promote Indic wisdom and culture to all parts of the society. One branch is now we have opened in Ujjain, Bharat also. So we have two branches, okay. One operating from Bharat, another from New Jersey.
There is a wonderful phrase which I learned a few days ago. It's saying that you are all dressed up but nowhere to go. So the question is, how, that's something which is very much important for me, is that we must know the purpose of life. And the purpose of life is then becomes relevant, because then you are dressed up and you know where to go. True. And it is very important that we kind of suffer from power of ineptitude. Jante sab hain, karte kuch nahi hai. How would you relate to that part in a quick 1 minute before we end the program today?
First of all, it's not easy to read and understand our scriptures. There are so many factors that constrains us from getting into the scriptures. If you take Bhagavad Gita itself, there are too many commentaries, language hindrance and cultural difference that prevents somebody in accessing the knowledge. So even if I read Bhagavad Gita, I may think that I know everything, but practically I may not be knowing anything. So the effort, like, we have to have a conscious, a team effort to extract this knowledge and present it into the modern context. Typically, I have seen people reading Bhagavad Gita and worrying about Arjuna. Right? So what?
Even today.
Even today. So what difference it is going to make? Arjuna's problem is my problem. So how do I relate that problem to myself? Shift the change from Arjuna to myself. That is why we named our project as Project Self. Here we don't worry about Arjuna's problem. We don't worry about whether it happened 3,500 years ago or yesterday. As long as that message is so relevant to me, I take that message and I allow myself to grow. So we need a proper framework. We need modern communication tools. We need modern example, context. Of course, the message is coming from Gita, but it needs to be presented to the age.
That's very important. It has to be presented in a manner. And that's where I feel that in India, we have not written our history. Our history has been written by others, whether it was the victor's history or the conqueror's history. We have never created a narrative of our own. And that's what is important for us to unite and create a meaningful narrative for the rest of the world. Believe it or not, there is a far greater awareness about Hindu beliefs, Hindu processes in the world today than it was ever before, because people are now willing to learn. technology has enabled that a lot of ignorance can disappear. Even if not ignorance, there's a lot more information. And I can give you many instances from beef eating to, they are very personal, very collectively important, but we have to build our own narrative. We have to create a narrative. Thank you very much for being with us today. If you noticed, in my program, I do not talk about news generally speaking. We allude to the news, to the events, and we discuss it on a full-blown basis. That is the endeavor. I hope you are enjoying it. Have a great weekend and see you next week again with another edition of Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha.